You guys, so I recently watched a TikTok compilation video on YouTube. I might actually link it down in my description box for your viewing pleasure. But I recently watched a TikTok compilation of people just basically quitting their jobs. And I feel like that video came into my feed because I don't know, there's something about the astrological weather. I feel like a lot of people are having tower moments. A lot of people at the same time are having kind of these moments of, I'm so sick of my routine. I'm so sick of my life. Something needs to change. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people are snapping. I feel that energy myself in my life and people around me and even world events. It feels like it's tower moment after tower moment after tower moment. And if you pay attention to the astrology, I feel like you might find something there. There's definitely something going on in the astrological air. And depending on how it transits on your personal chart, people are going to experience this differently. So I haven't recently quit any of my day jobs, knock wood, because I like my current jobs, but I have had experiences where I did what those people did in those TikTok videos. I quit suddenly, abruptly, because I snapped. And this video is for you. This is obviously timeless, but I feel like at the time I'm filming this, it feels timely. And I'm just going to post it. I'm not even going to schedule it. I am going to post it as soon as I finish editing it because it just feels timely for some reason. So I'll just get onto it. So I feel like with the tower in the reverse, I feel like this was expected, but your boss didn't see it coming. I feel like from the very beginning, when you signed up for this job, even on your first day, I'm getting for some of you, even on your first day, you were kind of you weren't hesitant because obviously you signed up for this job and you needed this job. So I feel like you signed up with the best of intentions, with the Nine of Pentacles. And however, you immediately felt unsafe in this workplace. I feel like for some of you with the Seven of Wands in the reverse, you were a frontliner in some way. This could be, let's say you work at a deli or a convenience store or a shop. You were kind of the frontliner. You were one of the first people people ran into. Or if this is an office job or corporate or a freelance job, you dealt with something that had to do with people's first impressions. So you could have been a receptionist, you could be a social media manager, because social media managers and website designers and web designers, they deal with people's first impression. And that is what I get from the Seven of Wands. And just know that if your employer or your boss was overly critical of you, or they emotionally or verbally abused you for your performance actually wasn't the worst that they've ever experienced. Because I feel like after you left, things just went things just went downhill. And I'm feeling with the, again, with the, I'm channeling, but I'm also trying to cover how you felt when you initially signed up for this job. Right off the bat, you saw a lot of red flags. You saw kind of this sign of, oh, this is a toxic work environment. Oh, this is a toxic person. Oh, I have a bad gut feeling about this. For some of you, even in the early stages, you kind of knew that you weren't going to last in this job. So it doesn't come as a surprise to you that you eventually left. You never saw yourself long term with this employer, but this employer is so full of themselves that they never saw it coming. I just kind of get this sense of a lack of self-awareness with this employer. I'm getting that this employer has this self-image of themselves being very benevolent with the Six of Pentacles in the reverse. I kind of feel like, let's say you work at a company with a CSR. I feel like there's something about their CSR. So CSR is corporate social responsibility. So kind of the charity work the foundation of this company does, or this small business, even if this is a small business or a startup, I feel like there's something benevolent about it. And this benevolence, I hate to say this benevolence overshadows their wrongdoings, but that's kind of the energy I'm getting. So they have this self-image of themselves doing so much good that they lack self-awareness, that their misbehaviors become a blind spot to themselves. They have this image that, oh, I'm such a good person and I could never be this or that, and yet they are this or that. And I feel like there's a part of this employer that I feel like, and I'm not defending your employer, obviously not, because I feel like your employer understands toxic behavior. Your employer has the ability to recognize toxic behavior in other people. But for some reason, when it comes to themselves, they never seem to realize that they're being that thing that they so hate. You know what I mean? They can say, oh, I hate narcissistic people, or I hate abusive people, or I hate manipulative people, or I hate people who are passive aggressive. I hate people who neg others. Yet they do it themselves. And they honestly cannot see it within themselves. They honestly believe that they could never be that horrible thing, and yet they are. So, yeah. I feel like you stayed with this employer as much as you could, as long as you could, as much as you could deal with needing the pay. But eventually I'm seeing kind of this dam break. Again, I'm seeing the dam break from the Seven of Wands in the reverse. It's just kind of this dam broke, and I feel like your employer is in regret. I'm kind of getting this energy of them going through other employees. I see them. And another thing, with the Seven of Wands in the reverse, like I said, you had something to do with being a frontliner. And I feel like since you left, the frontline aspect of this company or this business went downhill. So let's say you used to, and this actually happened to me, and this is what inspired me to do this reading, apart from watching this video, those I quit my job videos, because this really reminds me of the time I abruptly quit my job because I couldn't handle it. So at the time, I was working a day job as an SEO writer, so search engine optimization writer. So I would write these articles on spirituality, on things that I know about, and I would optimize them so they would appear high ranking on Google searches, right? And so when I worked for this person, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. But to be fair, when I worked with them, as critical as they were of me, the Google searches were always up there. Every time we Googled this subject, this client's website would be pretty up there in the Google searches. And it's been, I don't know, it's been probably over a year since I walked off on them, and they're gone. I mean, they're still there. The business is still there, up and running. It's still existing, but it doesn't appear in the Google searches as much. And I feel like this person, this person you're asking about, they're experiencing something similar. So their sales could be dropping, their views could be dropping, their engagement could be dropping. There's something about that going on, and I feel like with the Six of Pentacles in the reverse, it has there's actually kind of some, I hate to word it this way because it sounds so grandiose, and I don't want to be I don't want you to think that I'm the kind of tarot reader who kind of, talks the divine this, the divine that, God this, God that, because I can't speak for God. I can't read God's mind. God does what God does, but I kind of feel like there's some divine intervention in their downfall. So even if their critiquing was valid, even if their criticisms of you were actually really constructive criticism, which in some cases they were not, it was just them projecting. I feel like despite all of that, their downfall, the downhill movement of their business has something to do with karma. It actually has more to do with karma than it does with actual cold hard scientifically backed performance. This is something that you can't really scientifically explain, is what I'm getting. And they are in regret. They are in regret of the overing. I'm hearing the overing of your work relationship. But with the world in the upright, I feel like this has come to this work relationship has ended its course. It was meant to end the way that it ended, and it did end at the time that at the correct time. So even if you felt like, oh, you didn't give them the 2 weeks notice or whatever, I feel like it ended when it needed to end. And it could have been something unpredictable as well, because it's reminding me of, okay, so my dad wanted me to take cooking classes, right? So I took pastry classes as a life skill, as a basic life skill. And I started taking these cooking and baking classes during the pandemic. So this happened a long time ago, but I took cooking and baking classes back during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, as you remember, the restrictions, the kind of quarantine restrictions went on and off. So my classes would go on and off, and during those off times, I would work intensely at these remote jobs. And after the pandemic kind of ended and things went back to normal, my cooking school resumed. So I went back to my pastry school. Anyway, I was kind of negotiating my time, my hours, working with this one client, and I wanted time off, and she kind of haggled. She kind of tried to get me to stay and not take time off from my pastry school. So I wanted some time off so I could focus on my pastry schooling. And she said, can you at least kind of dedicate an hour or two of work in your week? And for some reason, her asking me to, work these kind of squeeze these hours for her made me snap. And I actually said, you know what? Actually, maybe you should find somebody new. And that's when she panicked. And it's kind of interesting how these people panic, because I'm seeing the 7 of cups here, and it's kind of this energy of overwhelm. And I'm also seeing the Tower in reverse. So they didn't see it coming, but you kind of saw it coming. But it was a full on. What I'm seeing is it was an upright Tower for them, but it was kind of a reverse Tower for you, which is why it showed in the reverse. And with the 7 of Cups energy, I'm getting that they went scrambling looking for your replacement, and they haven't found that person. So with the Ace of Swords in the reverse, I feel like this person does shady dealings behind the scenes that you don't know about, or they have questionable morals. And with the 7 of Swords in the reverse, I'm getting that something recently came out about them, and you might not even be aware of this might even happen in their personal life. So for example, if your boss cheated on their partner, for example, that could have been exposed in their personal life, and they're kind of struggling to keep their relationship together, and that's part of why they can't cope without you. There's something like that going on. But with the two of swords in the reverse, I think they're pretty nosy about what you're doing these days. They want to reach out, but they know that they can't, because it's over. With the world card, I'm getting that it's over. And again, there's that energy of benevolence. And I don't know, I don't want to turn this into a story time, but basically what I remember from my abrupt quitting is that my boss at the time, and this might resonate for you because it's showing up in the Six of Pentacles. So I worked for a startup, and like I said, I did SEO writing for them. And for some reason, this employer would actually give me a hard time whenever I did my job right. So there was this. So I would write these articles on a weekly basis, and it feels like every week there was something new that she would complain about. So let's say I wrote the article and she pointed out that you're making this mistake, this mistake, this mistake. And I felt like, oh my God, she is so nitpicky, but whatever. I figured that maybe she's just a perfectionist. So I took note of a rule. I actually compiled all her quote unquote constructive criticism in a document so I could remember whatever rules she came up with. And every time I abided by, let's say she said, I don't like you using the word blue. I don't like you using this pronoun. I don't like you using this noun. I need you to use this adjective more frequently. Let's say those 4 points. I wrote those down. I took note, and I stuck to those rules and stuck by the book. Next week, she would come with 4 more rules. And it really felt like, I don't know if I'm tripping, but it felt at the time that she was just pulling these rules out of her ass. Like she was making, I'm not supposed to say like inappropriately, as if she just made them up to make up new rules. And the goalposts just kept changing. And it just kind of felt like I felt kind of played by her. And the crazy thing about it is every time I went out of my way to produce super polished work, she would find something to nitpick about it. But if I got sick, and I usually wouldn't tell her if I got sick, I would just submit my article late, because I'm not a perfect person. I make mistakes too. So I remember this one time, I submitted my work a day late, and she said nothing about it. She literally, if I screw up and I be a bad worker, she will usually say nothing about it. But if I go out of my way and do a good job, she would nitpick and try to put me down, which I thought was so shady. And so I just got so fed up of the changing goalposts, of her making a new rule every week. It just felt like, you know how when you start a new job, there's a learning curve, right? There's a learning curve. You learn their style guidelines. You learn how they write. You learn what kind of spelling they like. Do they like UK spelling? Do they like US spelling? Do they like American English? Do they like kind of the British English or Australian English? Do they like casual? Do they like formal? What color schemes do they like in their videos? Because I also produce social media content for this person. Do they like what color scheme do they like? How do they like their videos graded? What filters do they like? What kind of songs do they like behind their YouTube shorts and their TikToks and their Instagram reels, whatever, right? You eventually learn these things. But with this employer, I felt like the learning curve never ended because she kept shifting goalposts and she kept creating new rules, new restrictions. And there were always multiple of them every week. And it just felt like she was pulling these things out of her ass, because I'm not young, okay? I'm not young, and I've probably had near 20 jobs in my life, and I've never experienced anything like this. You learn the rules, you stick by the rules, and you stick with what works. It's not a new rule every week. And I felt like and I felt like, and the thing is about this employer, I remember, and this might actually resonate for you, but I remember this employer made a big deal out of their kind of CSR, the kind of charity work that they did on the side. So they claimed that they donated a large portion of their proceeds to, domestic abuse and, people in toxic relationships. And yet she was always toxic toward me as an outsourced writer. And I just felt like this is so weird. This is so weird that you don't have the self-awareness to understand. And the thing is, she was having me write articles about that very subject, about toxic relationships, about kind of these unhealthy dynamics, and yet she was doing it to me. So I felt super gaslit about it. Yeah. And they were spiritual articles too, and I just couldn't understand, how are you running this spiritual business, having me write about toxic dynamics while you're being toxic to your own employees? It just felt so wrong and so messed up. And one day I just snapped and said, no, you're going to have to find someone new while I take my pastry classes. And after I graduate from pastry school, I never came back. And so, yeah, that's kind of my little story time, but I feel like that might resonate for some of you. I feel like some of you have felt gaslit by this person, by this employer for a very long time. And maybe you even felt like this employer had some shady dealings going on behind the scenes, because honestly, in my experience, I didn't feel okay about... I guess this makes me a little shady because at the time, I kind of had a sense that this employer with the startup and the articles, I felt like they wanted to create an emotional dependency on their customers toward their service, and I felt like that was toxic. It's kind of the situation of, how dating apps, you should go on a dating app and find somebody, okay? So the dating apps goals should be that you eventually get off their app. But instead of getting off their app, you're stuck in this cycle where you're constantly looking for a new woman, a new man every month, because the people on that dating app are not people looking for long-term relationships. So it kind of defeats the purpose of the app. And I kind of felt like that was what that person was doing. And then I just snapped. And now they don't appear in the Google searches as high anymore. And I guess in your case, you could be dealing with something similar. And yeah, I highly recommend watching the TikTok compilation that I just did, because that was kind of cathartic for me. I felt, oh wow. I remember when I felt like this, and I don't know. I highly recommend watching that video because it was healing. It was healing. And I felt like, oh yeah, I actually felt like this, like these people in the video. And in that video, people were just, there were happy people, there were miserable people, but the miserable people were crying happy tears. I don't know. There were people that were just running saying, I just quit my job. Yay, I just quit my job. And it was just, you felt so happy for them. I felt my heart swell for that person. And I know that's so weird. But yeah, so yeah, this I think this especially resonates for those of you working in the front lines. So teachers, kind of fast food workers who worked at the cashier. Yeah, they didn't see it coming, and now they're struggling, and they're getting karma they're getting karma that is not directly derived from their from your performance. So it's not like, so it's even if their criticism or their feedback for you was legitimate, right? Because I'm not going to say that, oh, you're a star worker. Maybe you weren't. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. For some of you, maybe you were a star worker, but like in my case, the better performing I was, the more they kind of beat me down and made me believe that I was doing something wrong. But for some of you, maybe you just needed to learn the ropes and they were hard on you. Either way, ever since you left, things went downhill. And if you legitimately were a good worker, it's because your replacement is not as good. And ironically, your employer might have been like my former employer, where if I didn't perform that well, or I submitted work late, or if I submitted sloppy work, they wouldn't say anything about it. But the better I performed, the more they would beat me down. I'm kind of getting that this person ends up surrounding themselves with not that great workers, because they have to be the most type A person. And what I'm getting from the Page of Cups in the reverse is that they're projecting their parents' behavior on them. So they could have been raised by perfectionist parents. And so they project that perfectionism on you. They're hard on themselves, but instead of just being hard on you in the normal way, what they do is they try to beat people who outperform them or overperform them or are better at the job than they are and make them feel less than. They make them feel small. This is such a weird energy. It's kind of normal. Okay, I shouldn't say the word normal, but again, a normal employer would surround themselves with competent people. I know a lot of people hate people like, I don't know. And I'm not saying this is right, but people like Elon Musk, for example, Elon Musk is not even a real engineer, right? We know Elon Musk, and I'm not minimizing having a physics degree, but Elon Musk has a physics degree, as in theoretical physics, but he is not an engineer. Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast and Elon Musk are essentially kind of the same, right? Because they surround themselves with people with brilliant ideas, but they put their name out there. And I kind of feel like, as much as that sounds wrong, that is kind of the way to go. If you surround yourselves with people who are better workers, more skilled than you, more talented than you, more artistic and creative than you, and then have those people contribute to your cause, to your business, to your company, right? This is not what, for those of you resonating with this storyline, with this reading, I feel like you worked for a messed up employer who had such a huge ego that they couldn't even do that they could not pluck talented people out to improve their business and push it forward. They were more interested in being top dog. They were more interested in being the smartest person in the room. So when they see an employee or a freelancer or an outsourced worker outperform them, they beat that person up. And I feel like in your, I don't know, I'm just getting this sense of something messed up happening with, especially with the Page of Cups in the reverse. There's emotional immaturity there, and a massive lack of self-awareness, a major blind spot in their own behaviors. And I feel like their karma is that they have secrets. They have secrets leaked about them. They have secrets revealed about them. I'm getting that something to do with their charity work might get exposed. Something like that. Something like, oh, this person likes to cover their wrongdoings using charity. But actually, they're horrible people behind the scenes. And that's getting exposed. It's getting revealed. Or it could be something in their, like I said, in their personal life that has to do with cheating getting exposed. Because that's what I'm getting with the Seven of Swords in the reverse. This person has always been crooked, but they like to surround themselves with people who don't outperform them. They never want to be outdone, so they surround themselves with incompetence so they can feel competent. So they can feel competent. Sorry. They surround themselves with incompetent people so they can feel competent themselves. And if you're wondering why anything you did was never enough, that's probably why. Because you did an okay job, but they felt like it was too okay, so they had to put you down for it. They were always nitpicking. They were always finding fault in what you did. And I don't know if if your case is as extreme as my case, but in my case, it really was this kind of changing goalposts and a never ending learning curve of learning the ropes. Because learning is never ending anyway, especially if you work in a field like astrology. You're always going to learn new things, but the actual SOP, the standard operating procedure of a company, of an employer, you should only be on that learning curve for a month or two. And you should be accustomed and acquainted to the way things are done in that company. And I felt like that never happened for you. That never happened for me, because the rules kept changing, and they kept changing depending on your mood, your boss's mood. And it's not in that they're kind of testing and trying out what works and what sticks in the market. It's more to do with their inner turmoil. Business is not doing good, especially something to do with the front line, because I'm seeing that Seven of Wands in the reverse. I just see this dam breaking. I don't know if that's even kind of their company going bust. I don't know what that is, but I hope this helped. This person was not upstanding. They were not an upstanding citizen, because I'm getting the Six of Coins in the upright and then the Ace of Swords in the reverse right next to each other. And then on top of that, we've got the Seven of Swords in the reverse. So that is how your former employer is faring after you abruptly quit. Or I don't know, maybe you didn't abruptly quit, but it was unexpected for sure. They never thought you would quit. So yeah, I hope that helped. Bye.